this video, I'm going to explain to you why Nelson Mandela was right about the bananas. And in the process, I'm going to teach you how to challenge authority. Now firstly, let me explain the story with the bananas. There was a social behavior experiment with monkeys that was placed in a controlled environment, and these monkeys were given a ladder to climb up to, and at the top of the ladder there was a lot of bananas, and so they could typically climb up and pick themselves a banana. But what they didn't know was there was a water cannon, and when they get to the almost top of the ladder, the water cannon would blow them right off this ladder. And so the first monkey tried and he got blown off the ladder. The second monkey tried and he got blown off the ladder, and by the time the third one tried, he got blown off this ladder completely, so that all the monkeys started screaming badly and telling any other monkey that tried after that, don't do this, don't climb up this ladder. And then systematically what the scientists did was they started to remove the monkeys one by one and replacing them with monkeys who had never been blown off the ladder or seen another monkey being blown off the ladder. But every time they tried to climb up to get to the bananas, they were met with a screaming troop of monkeys that told them not to. And so eventually all the monkeys that had ever been blown off the ladder or seen anybody being blown off the ladder were removed, and none of the monkeys ever climbed up the ladder anymore, even though none of them had ever experienced it. And so you can easily say, well, that's a bunch of monkeys. But the same were done with humans. In an experiment, I'll post it in the corner of the video, where in a dental waiting room a lady was placed with a lot of actors, and she was the real patient. And when she sat there, a beep went off and everybody in the waiting room just got up. And by the second or the third time that everybody had gotten up, she decided that this must be what is expected of her, and so she also got up. And systematically, as the other actors went in supposedly to see the doctor, the waiting room got more and more empty until she was actually completely alone. And while hesitant, she still got up. And then slowly but surely, real other patients were introduced into the waiting room, and lo and behold, they started following her, and they also got up. One by one, when the beep went up, they stood up still. Eventually the whole waiting room was full of people who stood up for a beep, who no one ever told them that they should stand up for. They didn't understand why, they had no particular reason why, and still they did. So why do humans do this? We tend to conform, we tend to like to conform and feel safe within that conformity. We feel safe when we don't stand out, and that is where Mandela was so right. Mandela understood that you cannot just conform when things are wrong. He understood that you have to sometimes challenge authority, but you have to do it for the right reasons. And now the question is, when is the right reason, and how do you challenge authority? Well, the first thing that you've got to understand is, if you're simply challenging authority for the sake of challenging authority, you're simply being rebellious. Okay? So the first test is this a valid reason for me to challenge the authority? And the questions you've got to ask yourself in that sense is the rule that I'm challenging, or the individual that I'm challenging, still functional for the greater society? Is it still serving a purpose? If it's no longer serving a purpose, if it is no longer serving the greater whole, then you have every right and you should challenge the authority. If however it is still very functional, you're simply being rebellious. The second test is this a social injustice? Is there something fundamentally wrong? Are we being unjust to people through this rule, through this structure, through this individual? And if so, then most certainly it needs to be challenged. And once again, this is where Nelson Mandela was so accurate. He could see that there is a system that is fundamentally unjust and that needs to be challenged. It was no longer, it never did serve the greater population and the greater society, and for that reason he challenged it. And now we're getting to, how do you challenge? Well, firstly, you have to find a way of exposing why it is no longer functional. And this you do through asking questions, subtle questions. If it's your boss that you're challenging, if it is a rule at work that you're challenging, you're asking subtle questions. Why is this rule here? Why are we doing this? How is this serving the organization? How is this serving the greater society? And through doing that, you are helping others and the authoritative figures to see where this is no longer a functional rule. And hopefully, through the passive way, you manage to convince people that a new rule, a new authority, a new way of doing things must be introduced. If you fail, and maybe this is the third tip then, you have to go into protest. And protest can once again be passive or active. But you can protest like the Japanese fashion when people go on strike through simply putting a black band around your arm. And you see that with sport teams often putting protest against their sponsors, their pay or whatever, through simply making it known that there is protest. And protest serves the function of shining the light on either the injustice or the dysfunctionality of the authority. And those are the correct measures. So when you find yourself wanting to challenge authority, go through these motions. Firstly, ask, should I challenge this authority? And we've given you the test for that. Second, can I do it passively and in a more subtle way? And thirdly, do I need to do it through protest? And if I need to do it through protest, how do I mobilize such protest so that, like Greta Thunberg, you are able to bring a movement about, to bring an awareness about toward an authority or a system that is no longer right, functional, and serving the greater community. I hope this was helpful. Leave your comment below, share it, tell your friends, like the video. I'd love to see you around on the channel. Thank you for watching. My name's Louis, and you're watching Explained.